Along the coast of the mysterious continent of Lustria, Kuno Voigt, a renowned explorer of the Empire, is establishing his base camp and assembling the armed forces of his expedition from the fleet anchored offshore. From this camp, he intends to strike into the jungle and plunder the riches of the New World. Unbeknownst to him, under the cover of the jungle canopy, chameleon skinks watch Voigt's every move and relay word of his intrusion to their master, the Saurus Oldblood Uktel. Uktel's response is swift, calling for his army to assemble and drive the intruding humans back into the ocean. This call reaches one of the Skink Priests under his command, Critkir-Chu, who is leading a small warband, including one of the vaunted Stegadons. Its thick armor and ability to barge through tree and wall alike makes it important to Uktel's success, and so Critkir-Chu sets off to return to him as quickly as possible, taking the shortest route that leads through the dangerous Twinriver path. Though the Lizardmen did not know exactly why, many who attempted to cross the Twinriver path were never heard from again. This was because the path traveled dangerously close to a slumbering tree man ancient. Though most were native to the forests of Athelorn, some had spread far across the world, and with them came the wood elves who looked to protect them. Seeing the danger that the Stegadon posed to the trees within the Twinriver path, and the chance of it damaging the ancient, the wood elves held a war council. The debate on if action should be taken lasted long into the evening, with proponents on both sides arguing fiercely. Among their number, Dhari, a wood elf noble, was the loudest advocate for action, and when his side won the argument, it was he who assembled the war host and prepared an ambush on the Twinriver path to crush the invading lizardmen, prevent the Stegadon from doing any damage, and remind them why the Twinriver path was not theirs to cross. Today's battle is a 450-point solo game of Warhammer Fantasy 6th edition Warbands, played between Wood Elves and Lizardmen. In this game, the Lizardmen are being ambushed by the Wood Elves, and so they deploy their entire army first, excluding their scouting skinks, but are also given the first turn. This game will last for 6 turns. If, at the end of those 6 turns, the Lizardmen's Stegadon has moved off or is within 3 inches of the opposite board edge and is not fleeing, the Lizardmen will have won this game. If the Stegadon is killed or prevented from reaching its objective before the end of the 6th turn, the Wood Elves will be victorious. The Lizardmen army is being led through the Twinriver path by the Skink Priest Critkir-Chu. He is a level 2 wizard, granting him 2 spells from the Lore of Heavens. He rolls Forked Lightning and Uranon's Thunderbolt, 2 shockingly similar spells, and so he replaces Uranon's Thunderbolt with the second sigil of a mole. He takes up a position in the column directly behind the Stegadon, which is leading the way to reach the battle as quickly as possible. Marching behind him is a unit of 6 Saurus warriors. Scouting along the flanks are 2 units of 3 Skink Skirmishers, each with a scout's special rule, allowing them to be deployed in a forward position. The Wood Elf army is being led by the noble, Dhari. He is mounted on an Elven Steed and accompanied by a unit of 6 Glade Riders. Deploying on the field with him is a unit of 10 Dryads, some of the Treeman Ancients' attendants, and a unit of 5 of the fearsome Wardancers. They take up position in the middle of the Twinriver path, prepared to intercept the incoming Lizardmen, while Dhari and the Glade Riders sit on the southern path, ready to hound the Stegadon the entire way across the board. The game begins with the main column of Lizardmen marching forward. The Stegadon is capable of moving faster, and so breaks ahead of the column and starts down the southern path, making for the board edge as quickly as possible. With only 6 turns to get there, any delays might make reaching its goal impossible. On either side of the battlefield, the Skink Skirmishers emerge from the trees to strike at the enemy with their blowpipes. Critkir-Chu casts Forked Lightning on the Glade Riders, and succeeds with irresistible force, though the spell only manages to inflict a single wound on the unit. The southern Skink Skirmishers open fire as well, and manage to strike down 2 more, while the squadron on the north path fires at the Dryads and manages to kill 1 of them. The Wood Elf forces charge in response to this aggression, the Dryads emerging from the woods to engage with the Stegadon, while Dhari and the Wardancers each engage with the Skinks in front of them. The Glade Riders weave between the melees, their swift mounts easily maneuvering around the obstacles and bringing them around to face Critkir-Chu. They open fire, but aren't able to inflict any damage this turn. The other Skinks are not so lucky. the North group cut down entirely by the storm of blades dance of the Wardancers, and 2 of the 3 in the southern group being killed by Dhari's charge. The remaining skink fails to do any damage, but even so he faces down the Wood Elf with truly astounding courage. This courage is rewarded in the next Lizardman turn with a quick, deadly strike. The Dryads, meanwhile, wail on the thick skin of the Stegadon, but fail to pierce its tough hide despite landing several glancing blows. The Stegadon swings to the side, slamming its horns into one Dryad and stomping on another. Confronted with one of the natural predators of trees, the Dryads are forced to flee. Though they do regain their senses and rally in the coming turns, they won't find themselves in a position to contribute for the rest of the battle. Unable to march with the threat of the Wood Elves so close, the Stegadon continues down the path, the Saurus warriors and Critkir-Chu following behind it. Forked lightning is cast on the Wardancers this time, and one of them is killed as a result. Critkir-Chu also attempts to cast the second Sigil of a Mole to no success. As the Stegadon is facing forward, it is unable to fire its giant bow this turn. However, the skinks on its back all throw javelins at the Glade Riders as they pass, and fail to inflict any damage. As the column advances, the Wood Elves collapse on the rear of it, Dhari charging Critkir-Chu, and the Wardancers moving in to threaten the flank of the Saurus warriors. The Glade Riders turn their attention to the Stegadon now, riding alongside it to remain close enough to prevent it attempting to run forward, and peppering it with arrows that achieve nothing. As he closes in on the Skink Priest, Dhari thrusts his spear forward, skewering his small foe and hoisting his limp body into the air with a victorious cry. Seeing their leader fall, the Saurus warriors charge into battle and manage to land a serious blow on Dhari. He strikes back at them, but fails to inflict any significant damage, and it looks for a moment like he might be in trouble. The Wardancers spring to the rescue, however, charging into the rear of the Saurus warriors, and once again slaying all the foes before them with their storm of blades dance. The Stegadon, meanwhile, continues to advance, making use of its surprising mobility to turn back as it runs and allow the skinks on its back to fire the giant bow at the Glade Riders. Unfortunately for them, this technique doesn't provide the stability that the bow demands, and none of their shots will connect in this battle. The Glade Riders continue giving chase and firing on the Stegadon, but the thick hide and armor plates of the Howdah block their arrows. Now left alone, the skinks crewing the Stegadon know they have to reach Uktel at all costs. They urge the Stegadon forward, focusing on their journey as best they can, while still turning back to open fire on their pursuers when the opportunity presents itself. They fire the giant bow at Dhari, but miss. The bolt-sized arrow slamming into the ground beside him attracts the ire of the Wood Elf, and he leads a daring charge against the monster, while the Glade Riders and Wardancers continue to close the distance. The giant bow fires and misses again, but one of the 3 remaining skinks gets lucky as he throws his javelin, and it catches Dhari in the throat, knocking him from his horse and killing him instantly. The skink meets an unfortunate end in the next turn as the Glade Riders declare a charge and manage to pierce his side with their spears, before 2 of them are crushed by the mighty Stegadon, and the last is caught by a sneak attack from another skink. All the while, the Stegadon grows ever closer to the edge of the table, and its ultimate goal. On the final Lizardman turn, the Stegadon arrives at the board edge, but doesn't have enough movement to completely move off it, giving the Wood Elves one last chance to catch them. The Wardancers charge into the fight, one of them being shot down by the giant bow of the Stegadon. The 3 remaining Wardancers leap into the air as part of the whirling death dance, flying over the Howdah and with expert precision striking down 2 of the remaining skinks. The sight of elfin steel overhead, and the promise of more to come, as both Stegadon and skinks are unable to land so much as a touch on the Wardancers, is enough to terrify the last 2 skinks, who urge the Stegadon to flee. Being a stubborn beast, and lacking enough crew to bring it under control, the 2 skinks are unable to prevent it from barging off into the jungle, away from the tree and ancient, and unfortunately for Uktel, far from the battle they were destined for. Though the battle was costly in terms of Wood Elf lives, the ancient was protected, and the Lizardmen reminded that crossing the Twinriver path is never worth the risk. Before we look at the tactics used, if you enjoyed this battle report, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more. Every bit helps the channel grow and ensure there are plenty more Warbands battle reports to come. Next week will be the raid on Salethion, a 500-point battle between High Elves and Dark Elves. And now, onto the tactics review. Despite the fact the Lizardmen lost every model they fielded, today's game was incredibly close, and ultimately the Wood Elf victory was secured only through a few lucky dice rolls in the final turn. If the Wood Elves wanted to have a better chance at securing victory, they needed to put more effort into preventing the Stegadon from advancing. Allowing it to move the full distance each turn, even if it couldn't march, was a major blunder that ultimately came from their poor initial movement. If the Dryads had been kept in reserve for a turn or two longer, and instead used to stand in the way of the Stegadon if it turned to face away from the direction it needed to go, victory could have been secured without a single dice roll. Even if that opportunity never presented itself, there was enough of a chance for the Dryads to survive a charge and turn a 6-inch move into a 2-inch move forward one turn. Another potential fault could be found in the movement of the Wardancers. The initial focus on killing the Skinks and Saurus warriors kept them from contributing to the victory condition until the final turn. If they had been moved down to engage the Stegadon alongside Dhari, they might have achieved better success. On the Lizardmen side, the two major mistakes lay in the choice of deploying the Skinks, as well as keeping Critkir-Chu alone. Placing him in the Saurus warrior unit would have kept him a little safer, though it's unlikely he would have survived in that case either, so it's a moot point. The Skinks, however, could have survived much longer if they were placed further forward on the battlefield, and potentially kept in reserve until the final turns. Even so, their defeat was a simple matter of unlucky dice rolls on the final turn, so there isn't much to criticize here.